to cap it all, yesterday, Twitter got grumpy with me.
Oh, really?
Yes. No, I put out what I thought was a helpful video about. I wasn't going to use a vaccine passport.
Right.
I wasn't going to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And I said why.
Yeah.
And
it's not as if you're the only person saying it.
well, exactly. Anyway, Twitter didn't like the way that I described the effectiveness of masks, so they made it impossible for anybody to like, retweet,
Really?
or comment on.
So they didn't put you in Twitter jail. They just
described
the
it as medical and misinformation.
Really?
Yeah. So
So how do they come up with these plans? I mean, how do they say that that's medical misinformation?
They've obviously got either some thousands of people somewhere, but more likely it's probably some AI thing.
Some algorithm.
You just think the world's going completely mad, where we're not even allowed to discuss the effectiveness of certain non-medical interventions.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
extraordinary.
I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever medically that there is a huge difference in the type of mask that you wear. That is not in any way in question.
It was just it's the madness of the world we're in.
Yeah.
And I mean, you couldn't get over the headlines this week where you can't go to work, but you can go to party. Although what you've just said actually is potentially it's the dream solution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Open the pubs
Working
for breakfast.
from the pub.
Open the pubs for breakfast.
Well,
everybody go to work in the pub.
This is it.
And let's see whether that improves productivity or not.
Yeah, well, apparently, because there's so many loopholes in these rules because they are so ludicrous. Because how on earth do you say to people, right, you can wear a mask in all public spaces? Now, first of all, I'm not sure what all public spaces mean, because surely a pub is also a public space, but you don't have to wear one in a pub. And you also don't have to wear one if you're singing. So obviously, when I go walking around Waitrose later on, I'll just be humming. I mean, is humming okay? Or do you have to actually be singing words?
Well, let's be clear. I think it's better that I hum rather than sing.
Yes.
That is for sure.
Yes, well, that's all right. You can always do a rousing
so
chorus
I would
of
pretend
You'll
I
Never-
was singing.
You do a rousing chorus of You Never Walk Alone and just take a scarf with you.
Yes,
and,
that,
you could be celebrating Liverpool's
that's
great
fine.
season.
The problem is if I do that anywhere near Chelsea football ground,
Yeah.
then I'll be punched.
I wouldn't do it around my way where there's a lot of Millwall fans or West Ham.
But I mean, we jest, but this has been an unbelievably
But it's mad,
serious
isn't it?
week.
Yeah.
And you actually think about what has really gone on here. And the truth is, in my view, crystal clear, the Prime Minister has been caught misleading the nation, misleading the House of Commons, and he's now trying to backtrack out of it. And I think everybody can see it.
Well, even Wallpapergate has now come back to haunt him. And while that wasn't an important story at the time, now it kind of is, isn't it?
It really is, because I think up and down the country, people are now seeing this Prime Minister for what he is. He has at best a tenuous relationship with the truth.
Yeah.
At best, even that, I think, frankly, that thin string, that thin cord, has been cut.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear that he didn't tell the truth to Lord Geidt, the standards person that he appointed,
who's now possibly going to
and I think if Lord Geidt resigns over being misled by the Prime Minister on Wallpapergate,
that's huge, isn't it?
I think that's absolutely huge. And you wonder how much longer Boris Johnson can keep staggering on. I mean, it's just...
And there are three other things, it seems to me, that are important as well. So Keir Starmer made him give an assurance that he would give all papers and information to the police as far as this party that went on the 18th of December. Now, has he done that? And if he hasn't done it, why hasn't he done it? Who's asking these questions? Surely Keir Starmer should be, coming up every single day.
But the police...
have you sent them yet?
But the police have already indicated they're probably not going to bother to look into it.
Yeah, well, but that's ludicrous, though. I mean, how can they say we're not looking into it without knowing what they've seen? They haven't seen anything.
Mind you, we're quite used to that with the police, aren't we? I mean, if you give them some CCTV footage, as I have done recently, with the faces of some burglars literally there,
right?
They'll take it, but then they won't do anything.
No, that's too difficult for them. All right, okay, so he's basically going to get away with that one then. So he's not going to be prosecuted. However, well, surely Keir Starmer, if he was in any way sensible or good at what he did, he'd say, all right, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you give them to us then? If you're not going to give them to the police, we need to see the results of your investigation, which is going on. And are you? I mean, he was flapping about all over the place at the press conference when he was asked by one of the journalists there, I can't remember which one.
I think. Yeah, she asked a great question
about what about this party on the 13th? And he was bumbling around. He couldn't call it. He didn't know whether to call it an event. Didn't know whether to call it something that didn't happen. But don't worry, all of the rules were.
There's been a very clear shift in the language that he and everybody around him has been using. Initially, last week, when he sent his ministers out, they said there was no party, no rules, the guidance hasn't been broken.
Yeah.
Now it is, I've been assured that no rules were broken.
Yeah, who assured him?
Well,
that's what I want to know.
I mean, it is his house after all.
Right.
And if there's a gathering of 50 people, you might know about it.
You would think.
Unless they can prove that he actually wasn't in the premises, wasn't in the building. It's a bit like, was there or was there not a gathering in his flat with his wife on the day that Dominic Cummings left? And we also know from people that you will know as well, that I've spoken to, who go in and out of Downing Street all the time, and there are many of them. That place has always been a place where rules are not adhered to. They've got a couple of little cafes where people go and sit. People sit there drinking coffee. When we were supposed to be social distancing outside, they weren't doing it. Nobody wears a mask. They get told to wear a mask when they come out the front door. This feeds into the feeling that the people have got that they don't believe the rules themselves. I think it comes down to accountability, and quite rightly, Allegra Stratton resigned.
Yeah.
But I don't see how the head of press, the director of comms, this chap Jack Doyle, I don't see how he can stay in his position.
No.
I mean, at the very same time he was organising press releases and telling ministers the language to use to say we all had to stay at home last Christmas.
Yeah.
He himself was organising gatherings not to abide by the rules.
Right.
I mean, that's just completely untenable.
Well,
and indeed the rest of the press team. How could they have... I just find... Frankly, I think everybody at that gathering should be considering their positions and should be trying... they should either resign if they've got any integrity, any decency. They should say, look, hands up, we stepped over the line, and, we should have been upholding the standards to the highest possible threshold.
Exactly
because
right.
they were setting the rules.
Yeah, and look at this story today. 3 women have been fined for house parties held on the same day as the Downing Street Christmas party. The cases emerged as a former senior police officer called for the December 18th party at number 10 to be investigated. So the police surely have got to do something about this. They say they've ruled out an inquiry, but Amy Goto, 23, from West London, was fined £1,000 plus court costs after Westminster Magistrates Court found that she had, without reasonable excuse, participated in a gathering in a flat. So ordinary people get done for £1,000 fine. Boris Johnson and his cronies get nothing.
Yeah, and I think that is upsetting people all over the country, and it's just, as people have said before, it's not the actual, it's not the original thing, it's not the original action. It's the cover-up.
Yes, even though the original action was wrong.
Yes, the original action was wrong, but it's the cover-up, and then the cover-up of the cover-up.
Yeah.
And it's endless. And I think people have said, actually, no, this is wrong. And he hasn't properly apologised.
No, of course not. But also, has he reached? I mean, for me, I've been saying this all week, and I think this time he has overstepped the mark and he has gone too far, because we've seen him recover from stuff before. But I think now there are so many people who just see him as a busted flush, who don't trust him, who really don't want to see him there anymore. And in a way, and I know it's not nice to use individual kind of personal stories, but in a way, him having a baby yesterday, you just kind of go, what's he thinking? But you can't do everything.
Credit to you, because it's probably 2 months since you originally called out the Prime Minister and said he was the right guy to get Brexit done, but actually you don't think he's the right guy to lead the recovery out of COVID.
He clearly isn't.
And in a sense, all of this, I think, has proven that your original call was bang on right, and he's not. And it's just, there's no question that he bounced his cabinet and the whole country into Plan B as a distraction.
Absolutely. Which is unforgivable.
And one of it, I think that many of his own MPs now realise that. I think William Ragg, who bravely stood up as a backbench Tory MP, he's the chairman of one of the select committees, he stood up and he says, Prime Minister, people will know if you use Plan B as a distraction. As a
distraction, yeah. Nobody's going to buy it. He
and I just think that there's no logic to Plan B. There's a vote in the House of Commons, I think on Tuesday next week. Yeah. And this is really interesting, isn't it? Because he's not going to get it past dozens and dozens and dozens of his own Tory MPs, and therefore Labour, under the strong, robust, visionary leadership of Keir Starmer, have the opportunity now to turn over the government.
Yeah.
But are they going to take it?
Well, no, because they think that he should be doing what he's doing. In fact, he should have done it sooner.
In which case, it's not strong, robust, visionary leadership.
No.
It's weak, feeble leadership.
That was my point earlier about him saying that Boris Johnson is unfit to lead the country. Well, so's Keir Starmer, unfortunately for us. So we don't really have a choice. So the only choice we really have is to find a new Tory leader, isn't it?
Well, that will be, I think that's clearly on the minds and discussions going on in the chat rooms of the Tory MPs. And what's interesting is it's being led by the new intake of Tory MPs from 2019.
Yes.
A lot of the Red Wall MPs, actually, they just see it and they say it as it is.